Well, we're going to recondition this old swamp cooler. We're not going to do it perfect, but we're going to do it adequate enough to get the job done. You can see how dirty and filthy it is on the bottom. And this is a very long video, and I know you may not be able to watch the whole thing, but if there's just one certain section, if you want to just replace your belt or replace the pump, I have shorter videos on just that specific item. But this is going to be the long story on how to recondition this whole thing. As you can see, this is in really bad shape. It's been dirty, been sitting out for a long time, not being used. And as you can see, those have to be replaced. The old straw pads have to be replaced, and I never did like the straw pads, so I'm going to put in a different type. So if you don't have the right tool to clean out the bottom of the pan, you can just break a piece of linoleum, an old piece of the linoleum I had laying around. I'm going to break it up. I'm going to scoop up all the garbage in the bottom of this swamp cooler. That's what we're going to do. We're going to clean this baby up and get it working. We're going to change that pump. We're going to get all the dirt and the calcium deposits out from under here. I mean, this thing's in really bad shape, but I think the pan is not rusty. It's dirty, but it's not rusty. There's no holes in it. We're going to replace the pump. We're going to replace the belt, motor belt, and this thing's going to be good to go. And that hole right there is where the overflow drain goes in that hole. We're going to put a new drain in. Right now, right here is the bearings for the fan. They see how dirty it is. All that crud has to be cleaned off of there. And this is how we're going to take the old water pump off. This pump is no good, so we're going to put a new pump in. Most of these jobs are really simple, and you can do them, but they're just, if you're going to recondition the whole swamp cooler, there's maybe about 4 or 5 things you have to do to get it ready for summertime. And that's basically what we're doing here. We're going to get this thing ready for summertime. And because a lot of people don't do any maintenance on their swamp cooler for 4 or 5 years, and then this is what it ends up looking like. So we're going to put this pump in. This pump is very simple. We took it out, 2 little screws. We took the pump out, so that's going to make the pan easier to clean on the bottom. All the calcium. Now right here, you can see I cleaned that off. We're going to put oil in that little hole on the top there. Right here on the top, we're going to get all that crud off there. Right there, you can see that where I picked that. That's where you put 3-in-1 oil. Put oil in there. That's maintenance you should do every year, maybe twice a year. Put oil in there so the bearings are nicely oiled, so your fan turns smoothly and doesn't squeak and make noise. So you can see it's dirty, but I think it's going to be good. After we recondition it, it's going to be good. It will not be perfect, but it'll be good. Now here's the other side. You have to oil both sides, and there, if you can see right there, that's where you put the oil in, right there. And we'll put a little 3-in-1 oil in there. And the fan, as you can see, the fan belt is really rough looking. We're gonna change this fan belt. This fan belt is dry rotted and just really bad shape. So we're gonna put the new fan in also. So as you can see, we're gonna do quite a bit of stuff here. It's a long video. Bear with me. But if you have to recondition one of these, it's going to be helpful. It's going to be helpful to watch this video. It'll give you confidence also that the jobs are not that difficult and you'll be able to do it. When you put the new belt in, that's the tension you want to put it in. I'm showing the tension. That is the correct tension for the belt for one of these swamp coolers. They don't need to be too tight. That's the problem. You put these belts on too tight and you'll mess up your motor. And they don't want to be too loose either, but just that's about the perfect tension that I showed you. Now right now, you're gonna loosen up 2 bolts. We're gonna take the fan belt off. 2 bolts on this side and 2 bolts on the other side. and we're going to, the other bolts are over here on this side. We're going to loosen them up, and we're going to take the fan belt off. You see those bolts? We're going to loosen those up. Okay, so you see these. They're very simple. You can use a crescent wrench or even an open end box wrench. I recommend a regular open end wrench for this so you don't bust your knuckles open. But they're easy to, just 2 bolts on one side, 2 bolts on the other, and this is going to loosen up the bracket that the motor's on. Don't take these bolts all the way off, just loosen them up. All we're doing here is taking the old fan belt or the motor belt off. The belt. Remember, after these things are about pretty old. If you're going to recondition one, get it ready for the summer, it wouldn't hurt to put a fan belt on it. Now, right here, see how you pull? I pull the motor forward. Pull the motor forward, and the belt will come right off. See? So that's what we're going to do here. You loosened up the 4 bolts. We pulled the motor a little bit forward, and the belt comes right off. Simple. Home Depot, any home improvement place sells these belts, all different sizes. You take your old belt with you. Make sure you get the right size belt. Bring it on. We're going to put that back on. Very simple job. You can do this. And this is, like I said, we're getting this swamp cooler ready for the summertime. So you won't have any problems during the summer. Clean the bottom. Make sure you clean the bottom out of the swamp cooler. I'm just showing you here how the bracket goes back and forth. Now, see, when you put the belt back on, you're going to push the motor back up forward, and then we'll get to that part later. On the end of the video, we'll be putting a new belt on. And as you can see, we've cleaned out a lot of the crud in the bottom of the pan. A lot of the crud's out of there. Most of it was just calcium and dirt. And it's looking a little better. So the next step is we're going to run water. We're going to run a lot of water in the bottom of the pan and clean out all the dust and the dirt, because this is the best way. Now remember, the overflow valve, we got the overflow drain valve is out. So there's just a hole in the bottom of the pan. So we're going to run this water through here, and you just take your time on this. Don't be cheap, because you don't want dirty water in your swamp cooler. You want this nice, as clean as possible. You want your pan as clean as possible so you don't catch Legionnaire's disease. So cleaning out the bottom of the pan is really a yearly maintenance thing. As you can see right now, I'm just cleaning it out, and it's all falling through the bottom of the pan because we don't have the overflow drain in. And later on in the video, we're going to put a new overflow drain in. But this is an important part, to clean the bottom of the pan the best you can. Now we're going to take these old pads out. Now, one of the most important yearly maintenance, you've got to make sure your pads are good. And obviously these pads are really bad. And we're going to put new pads in all 3 panels. As I said, this is sort of a long video, and if you want, I have shorter videos on how to replace the pump, how to replace these pads, and those, if you don't want to bear through this whole video, you can go to the shorter videos to show you just how to replace the pads and how to replace the pump and so forth. As you can see, this metal bracket here holds in the pad. They pop out pretty easily, and once you take the pads out, throw those away, go to Home Depot, buy yourself some new pads. Before you go to the Home Depot or your local hardware store, just measure these. Make sure you measure them to know what the correct size is to get. As you can see, that's the bottom of the swamp cooler pan, and that's the white stuff is calcium. We live in an area where there's heavy calcium in the water, and the calcium builds up. This is what happens if you don't clean the swamp cooler for 10 years. This is what happens. Calcium just builds up, and you want to get as much of that off of there as possible. And you want to kind of check for rust. If you have any rust in your pan, then you're going to have to sand it all down and repaint it. They have a special paint. This one is mainly just calcium on the bottom here, and like I said, we're not going to do a perfect job on this recondition. We're going to do a job to get us by for a couple years. And that calcium looks worse than it really is. As you can see, the bottom of the pan still has the black coating on it, so there's no rust on it. So there's no rust on this one, which is good for us. If you end up having rust on the bottom of your pan, like I said, you have to sand it down and get a special black swamp cooler paint and paint the bottom. So right now we're just cleaning. Before we can replace the overflow drain, before we can replace the pump, before we can replace the fan belt, the motor belt, basically we're cleaning. That's the most important part. Clean all the dirt and the grime and the filth out of there. Once you've got it all cleaned up, then your job is easier, replacing everything. So my whole point is, don't skimp on cleaning. Cleaning is one of the most important parts of the yearly maintenance, getting the swamp cooler ready for summertime. Now here's your new pad. And if you got this type of pad, make sure the screen is on the inside. The screen to the inside. Now this type of swamp cooler has a metal bracket that just holds that thing in place. Very simple. It just snaps in. First you put it in the bottom, push it in the bottom, and then push it in on the sides, and that's it. It holds the pads in. See how you just, this is very simple here. Putting new pads in is pretty simple. I recommend putting new pads in at least once every 2 years. You don't want to get too much bacteria or viruses in the pad. If you keep them in there more than 2 years, you're prone to maybe Legionnaire's disease or something like that. So pads are pretty cheap. Pads for all three pads here cost less than $10, and it's a lot better to replace your pads than to catch Legionnaire's disease. Okay, and as you can see there, you can use a screwdriver to help you clip that in there. A screwdriver can help clip those in there if you don't want to get your fingers stuck. But that's all it is. Changing the pads is pretty simple. And now we're going to oil. See, remember before where I showed you how to oil these bearings? This is where you have a screwdriver. Have a little screwdriver, and you hold the flip up, the little top flip. The top has a cap that flips up. You hold it up with your screwdriver and just put a little 3-in-1 oil. Now this is something you should do about twice a year to keep your, this is something you should do at least twice a year. Put a little oil in that plug there. Now we're going to put the new pump in. Like I said, we're getting ready for the summertime. If you think your pump is old and looks bad, this pump here only costs $15. And you see that, what I'm pointing at, that's going to plug into that hose there. We're going to take the old red adapter out. And this hose goes all the way to the top. That's where the water, this pump pumps the water up to those pipes. And then the water comes down over the pads. So that's what this pump does. All this pump does is pump the water up there to those black tubes. And then the water comes down the black tubes and into the pads. And that's how the air gets cooled. So, and then your pump is going to plug in right here. At the top of your swamp cooler is a little 110 outlet. The pump comes with this cord on it, so it's very simple. You plug it in up top. There's only 2 little bolts that's going to hold it. 2 little bolts that held it in there in the bottom, and that's very simple for the pump. Now we've got our new belt. We're going to put our new belt on. This is our new belt that we got at Home Depot, and we're going to put the new belt on. There it is, a 45-inch belt. And We'll get that out and I'll show you how. Now, as you can see, most of everything we've done now is very simple. It's just a lot of cleaning. So you put it on the small end first. And then you wrap it around the big end. And then what happens, you use your left hand and move the motor a little closer. See, right here, see the motor? You have to push the motor towards inside a little bit. Once you push the motor push the motor in there, that'll give you, and then we're just going to wrap it around, turn the pulley. You turn the pulley right, and that's on. Then all you have to do is tighten those 4 bolts, the 4 bolts you unloosened. You tighten those up, and your fan is in. Now here you can see where I put new pads in, the all new pads in. And this job's just about done. We put a new pump in. We cleaned the bottom. We put the overflow drain in. I'm afraid I might have missed this section here, putting the overflow drain in, but that's a simple job. If you check my videos, I have a small little video shows you real easy how to put that overflow drain in. And so this was an overview of how we reconditioned this thing, got it ready for summertime. And if you do everything we did here, your swamp cooler will definitely be ready for summertime. Now good luck and keep cool.